This program is brought to you by Pay Global.
Welcome back to the program. Just to let you know, we are live on Sky 291. You can also watch us on Facebook. We're streaming live on Facebook. You can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK. You can also listen to us on GN Radio on Sky channel 0185, also on TuneIn. So we've got you covered. Okay, we're also on DAB, so you can listen to us in your cars as well. Now let's move on to our next topic, which is our main topic of the day. You know, when it comes to what we eat as Africans, we love our traditional food. So today we're asking, what impact does our food and lifestyle choices have on our health as Africans? And joining us in the studio, we say goodbye to Ludwig Nee Jr. Joining us, we have Funke Adeniji, who is a pharmacist, an author, and also founder of WESIE. She'll be with us, and also Kiki is with us. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I guess I will start with you, if you can enlighten us the impact and the lifestyle choices of the food that we eat as Africans.
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting topic and question. And I think we can't talk about, when you think food, you think lifestyle, you think African, there's I think one word that has to come into play, and I think that's culture.
Yes.
Our cultural heritage, because I think our cultural heritage has a massive impact on the choices we make when it comes to our food and the way we live our lives, especially in a different society. I think that a lot of things drive our culture as well. I think, you know, you've got the Africans that maybe have spent most of their lives here, you've got those coming from abroad, and there's a bit of a mix of cultures going on, which all contribute to it. I think our religion is a very big part of it. I think the society we live in has had a massive impact on our culture and the choices we make, and also our environment as well. I think these things all combine to impact the choices we make, you know, especially those of us from an African background.
But then, are we aware of the impact the type of food that we eat has on our body?
I'm not sure a lot of us are. I think this is what I mean when I say, like, our religion, the societal values, you know, the way they impact the choices we make, because I think many of us are so focused on living our lives and going to work and making money, you know, especially in a different society, which I guess makes it more challenging. So some of the things that maybe would come more naturally if people were in their more sort of natural environment, or if they don't necessarily come as natural because they're not priority. I think people are becoming a lot more conscious about health and the choices they make, but I still think we have a long way to go in terms of, you know, because our food, you know, there's a lot of rich African dishes out there, and some of them are very healthy, some of them probably need a little bit of tweaking to make them more healthy than they are, but sometimes the issue is the way we eat that and the way we live our lives. So if I think about something really popular, like, I don't know, jollof rice or pounded yam and egusi soup, really nice heavy meal, probably it's got a lot of nutrients in it, but also very heavy, very rich. So someone maybe doing a shift job comes home and has it at 10 o'clock at night, and then goes straight to bed. It's probably not the best thing, and maybe during the day they've had a Big Mac, etc. So these are the kind of things I think we need to think about, that I think people are not necessarily that aware of.
Kiki?
I agree. I think one of the things that I have become aware of as I'm growing older is that our food is necessary for us, our DNA. And so, yeah, it's serious, but it's true. But our lifestyle goes against it, because, as you said, somebody does shift work. However, you come home and you are looking forward to the egusi soup at night, so you eat it. But then there is no time to wait for it to digest, apart from the fact that it's late, it's nighttime, and nighttime is for sleep. So you go immediately to bed, and then the food has not digested. It sits there in your stomach. So you have all these men with their huge pot bellies, etc. Then also it's we kind of copy. It's nice to eat other, to be cosmopolitan enough to try other foods, but cheese, for example, may not necessarily be good for our DNA, or some type of cheese. Sometimes they don't break down properly, and we are mostly lactose intolerant. It's not just us, the Chinese are as well.
Yeah.
So if we are not used to this sort of thing, but then we're eating the cornflakes and things thinking this is light and all of that, so much milk and all of that, it also does adverse things to our stomachs. I'm not a scientist, I don't know much about nutrition, but as I said, no, because as you grow and you learn, these are the situations. I actually one day had to go and sit in front of a dietitian, and she said to me that, if you look at my size, so you may think, oh, she's fat, etc. But this is my makeup, this is my DNA. So there may be somebody my size, similar person, different DNA type, may die, and I will be thundering on, because this is my fit, this is my makeup. We need to learn how to, as you said, adapt our food and to suit our lifestyle. But the other thing also is sedentary. For example, I sit all the time. My work is sitting down, doing typing and all of that. If you eat heavy food and you're sitting there and you're not moving about, that too could give adverse. It could affect you badly. Is
it a case where we can have the heavy food, it can be rich, but as long as you're exercising, you should be okay?
I think like Kiki just really raised some really interesting points and some key words that I kind of want to hone into. So one of the things you were saying is that like our DNA makeup, our food, because food like culture evolves over time, and this is the food that, our ancestors, they lived on, they were healthy. Maybe today's not the right time, but I often sometimes use my grandmother as an example. I mean, she, she wasn't necessarily as enlightened or educated as I would say her children were because of the generation she grew up on, but she understood the basics. I remember when she used to teach us about it's important to be active. She wasn't telling us to go to the gym obviously, but she was telling us we need to do housework because that's a part of being active, and also about eating healthy. And I look at her life and the way she died, which is probably how we would all want to die, is like of old age and not necessarily of illness. And she wasn't a slim skinny woman. She had body. I wouldn't say she was oversized, but she was healthy and strong in her own way. And I think our food has evolved for that culture, which was active. People used to go to the farm, etc. We don't do that anymore. A lot of us, like you said, especially if you're someone that's maybe unfortunate is not the right word, because some people probably are fortunate, especially if you're someone that does the desk or an office job and eating that kind of food. So it is I think, like you asked the question in terms of, is it a case of just exercising more? I think, yes, we need to do more exercise, but I don't think it's just about that. I think we also need to adapt our lifestyle. So in the book that I wrote, Truth About Health Exposed, I devoted a whole chapter to culture and religion, because I feel those two things, especially in the African Caribbean community, are so vital for us to speak about when we speak about health. But I also gave a lot of tips in terms of, it is about, if you start from the basis of a balanced diet and work your way from that, then it becomes easier for you to adapt it. And I also have a podcast, the Matitia podcast online, where I give a lot of tips. So one of the episodes that a lot of people really liked was one where I talked about how to be healthy through 9 to 5. If you're working, if you've got a desk job, things you can do in between to make sure you're active, to make sure you're still burning energy, kind of thing. Some of us eat a lot more than we need to, so it may be we need to look at the portions. It may be if you take 10 pieces of meat with your egusi soup. Maybe you need to downsize a little bit. So I don't think we need to change our entire diets or like the food we eat, because there are good things. I mean, egusi is quite rich in vegetables. You've got protein. You know, these are things that are good, but it's how we eat it and how we live our lives. Because health, you're not just looking at one thing, which I think a lot of people do. They think about one thing. They think about maybe just food, maybe just exercise. They forget about mindset. They forget about a lot. So it's looking at things holistically and bringing it together, and also personalizing it, because it is a personal thing. What works for you might not work for me. And so this is what I think we need to be thinking about.
Okay, you can join the conversation. You can go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK, or you can call into the studio 0203 735 8820 or 0203 286 0185. The numbers should be on your screen very, very soon. Now, there was this trend going out across social media where people were saying, if you look at statistics, there are a lot of Africans who are dying of cancer. So I wanted to know if there's any relation as to the type of food that we eat.
So I think this is where, like I said, it's a mixture of factors. So in terms of the risk of cancer, you know, and again, trying not to do this too much, but I did devote a whole chapter to cutting your risk of cancer in the book I wrote, because again, that is something that I think is becoming more of an issue within our community. Like I said, food is a central part of health. So there's that. There's also the fact that I think, like you said, a lot of people aren't aware. So apart from eating our food, like I said, which is good in itself in a way, but it's also the fact that we eat a lot more processed food, and this is part of the climate we live in as well. Like the junk food, you go to the supermarket, some of us aren't as conscious as others. We just pick things up. If we see it's cheap and it's a deal, we'll just pick it up. You know, same thing for our children, you know, so they go out, they eat all these things, and then coupled with all the other things going on, like, you know, the stresses of life, the environment we live in, all those things combined are what increases our risk. And the thing is, like, you know, within our community anyway, a lot of us are high risk of things like hypertension and diabetes. Again, like you said with your question, that's partly because of our lifestyle, the food we eat, the society we live in combined. Once you have one disease, your risk of getting another increases. So it almost becomes like a vicious cycle. So yes, cancer. And I think another reason why statistics are saying there's more of us is that more of us are kind of getting tested, more of us are sort of getting screened, so we're picking it up a lot more. I was speaking to a consultant the other day, and he was just saying to me how much of a problem this is within our community, and also the fact that, you know, our religion, our cultural beliefs, how those also are a detriment sometimes to our health as well. So when we're talking about our choices, like as Africans, I think it's important for us to think about those things that drive our choices, because those are the things ultimately that are increasing our risk, not necessarily the fact that we're black.
No. Kiki, I think you has touched on something. I think we've probably discussed this here before when it comes to religion. If one is seen to be ill, have some form of terminal illness, they refrain from taking medicine because of cultural beliefs or religion. And this is something that happens a lot within our community.
It's unfortunate, and it is very unfortunate, because people die, and there are instances where a child dies because the parents are following a certain religion, and so they can't have blood transfusion, or they can't do this, or they can't do that, or somebody is in a dire circumstance, they need certain drugs, but they can't have it, they can't eat this. You are just simple spinach. Maybe you can't have that, but it's good for your iron, etc. But they can't have it because they can't do certain things. All of that is killing us. We need to become more open to what is good for us. First of all, I always say this, education. We need to educate, and you said something which was very interesting, because you said your grandma, not that much educated, but she knew. most of our food is the reasons for it, the reasons why we eat certain vegetables, the reasons why we eat certain fruit. This is not being taught for us from the Western world. We were doing that before. We ate oranges for digestion, we eat mango, we eat all these things that are now becoming superfoods. They mention these things as superfoods, and it confuses me.
New foods.
Yeah, as if it's new. But we have it in Africa. We need to stop copying these people. And we need to eat our superfoods that we've known to have had it for years. And they just start something, or they discover something that we've had for years, and then they make
Send
it
it
into
back to
something,
us.
and they send it back to us, but it's always adulterated.
I think this is the problem, because I don't know if any of you travel much, but whenever I go back to Africa now, you will notice that there's a massive drive in terms of fast food joints. So places like KFC, McDonald's are all, and I sit,
pizza.
and Pizza Hut, and I sit down and watch some of my cousins and friends, and they get really excited about it and stuff, and and then they have that on top of like the proper food, not the ones here, the original ones, and they don't get it. For them, it's like a fad. Like you said, oh, this is nice. It's from abroad. This is what we see on the telly. So it must be good. And that's why if you look at even the World Health Organization, all this are saying that obesity is on the increase. And in Africa, it's like an epidemic waiting to happen.
Okay, if you just joined us, we're talking about food, okay? We're asking what impact does our food and lifestyle choices have on our health as Africans? And in the studio, we have Funke Adiniji, I got it right in the end. A pharmacist, author, and also founder of WESIE. And also Kiki is with us here in the studio. I call her Cassandra. I found a new name for her.
She's called Candy.
Say her name is. So you can join the conversation, go onto our Facebook page, GNTV UK, or you can call into the studio 0203 735 8820 or 0203 286 0185. It's funny we're talking about this now because not long ago there was a report that said, especially in Ghana, obesity is on the rise.
In Ghana?
Yes, in Ghana.
Okay.
With the among young children, the ones in senior high school and upwards. And in that report, it said if you compare to the people in the rural areas, there's a huge difference. Whereas the rural areas are eating more organic food. You come to the urban side, and as you said, you've got new pop-up shops, you've got pizzas, you've got burgers everywhere. So where do you think we've gone wrong as a people?
I think as a people, like we're just talking in the break, and Candy, Kiki kind of like said about how we tend to embrace anything Western. And I think earlier in the program I spoke about the mix between the Western and the African culture kind of thing, and sometimes that's a good thing, but I think in a lot of respects it's not necessarily a good thing in terms of our health, because some of the things we've taken up is the Western lifestyle, which is traditionally more sedentary than the African lifestyle, which was about a bit more physical exertion, whereas the lifestyle a lot of people, especially in the urban centers, live with development is they're living more and more. I mean, there's a lot of evidence for this. Like you mentioned the report, there's so many papers about this, how the type of food people are eating less organic food, less plant-based food, more processed food. And in the African sense of the word, I think that mentality, that complex, if I may use the word, that anything from abroad is better, is kind of driving our health in the wrong direction, because these pop-up shops is almost like a status quo. It's fashionable to go to these type of shops and eat and pay. So a lot of people in the city, and they're becoming more and more available, and similar to what they did here. You just hope that it doesn't get as bad as it is here, but part of the whole point of globalization is a lot of these food industries look for other avenues, people that are less aware that will buy into their products, and I think that's what's happening. And so as a people, I think we need to embrace our history. We need to embrace our native food and not necessarily look down on it. We also need to be more aware. I also run an NGO called WESIE, which is Women Elite Sports Empowerment Initiative, and I use sports as a tool of empowerment. And during the events that I hold, which are mostly sports events focused on women, I see it as an opportunity to educate and raise awareness. And I think we need to look at raising awareness and make people more aware in different avenues, because you just have to keep saying it. And in terms of as a people, you mentioned one of the other places we're going wrong, sorry to mention this, it may be a little bit controversial, is the mix with religion and health. I can't talk about health without talking about that. I think religion is important. I think it's good, but I also think there needs to be a better balance. I think especially in Africa, but even here, so I would probably say especially amongst the Black community in general, we focus so much on God, and the message of hope, I feel sometimes is oversold, such that people don't, it's like God's gonna do it. I've had religious people that just refuse to take medicines, refuse to engage, and it's only when they're at the point of dying that they're like, okay, let me try this. By then it's too late, and their belief is that God's gonna do it, or my pastor has told me not to take this, not to do this, God's gonna do it. But a lot of them forget the basics. Faith without works is dead. It's dead. Yeah. And I feel that's also, so I feel the religious institutions, which is such a big fabric of our culture today, also needs to play a role in raising awareness, in making, just as they say to people, oh, you need 10 steps to be rich or 10 steps to be this. It's about letting people know they need to put in the work for their health, otherwise they will get these things. And it's not a question of waiting till they get it and then saying that, okay, you're going to get a miracle, because that's kind of not how it works. You still have to make yourself aware, and you still have to put the work in to prevent yourself from getting these things.
No, it's interesting what you're saying. And then, Kiki, we've had this conversation before where we've spoken of the responsibilities that I think our religious leaders should have, or they have as well, to be able to introduce such workshops, because we do have recently some churches now having workshops on how to look after your finance. You have the marriage, the marriages, the known ones are marriages. You have the women's fellowship, then you have the men's one, about the singletons. But speaking about health and lifestyle, this is something that is missing.
It is. And because we've our food is there, but we have no respect for it, and therefore we're copying other people's foods and getting excited over pizza, etc. And this is not to say don't eat pizza. It's not that's not the point. The point is there are things which, if you eat too much of, are going to have adverse effects on your body. Then there are things that this is what we eat, and therefore, but then again, I had someone on my program the other day who was talking about diabetes, and one of the things she said, which was very interesting, is if you eat, as you said, 6 pieces of meat in your fufu soup, eat 2. Cut down. Use techniques to cut down. And these are things which should be discussed. Our problem is our history and our culture. Years ago, and even here, it was the same here, but I don't know what happened that they didn't embrace it and left it, and we're still embracing it. Priests were the main, the priests in communities were the main controllers of people's spiritual uplifting, or everyone consulted somebody. Everyone consulted a priest. Now we're consulting pastors. I hate them with a passion. And if they introduce, if they allow us to have guns, I would be sitting there shooting pastors.
Right. Okay, I don't think you're going to be doing that.
Why is that?
Because they give the wrong message. They use people, they use guile and persuasion.
Not all of them.
Most of them. Very few. Somebody, a pastor actually, said that if there were 100, only 5 were genuine.
Well, I don't know. I need the statistics to be able to believe that. But
I will be shooting them
on the subject of...
I think I'll just add to that here, because I think it's true. Like, I do see what you're saying, and I feel like there are some pastors that it's almost as if, and I think it happens a lot in Africa because of poverty, that almost like they sell the message of hope. That's what they're selling, because people so so desperate for hope and stuff. But I think it's true that it's not all, and I think it's dangerous to tar all pastors with the same brushes. And when I wrote the book and I wrote the chapter on religion, I interviewed some pastors, and not all of them agreed to be interviewed. The ones that I did interview were honest with me and said that they don't condone some of these practices, but they know that they go on, and some of them have been to churches where they have seen that's their doctrine, but they also believe that you need to mix faith with common sense, basically. So it's not all of them, but it is something that I think, there is an issue clearly that needs to be addressed, because if you have one and you think of all the people following that one and you think of the possible consequences, so one is too many. So it's something that, there needs to be more awareness in those settings and more accountability.
And I just wanted to mention what Kiki talked about, which was diabetes, and this is something that really affects the Afro-Caribbean communities. And just if you could just talk us through some of the preventive measures.
So, I mean, the first thing you think about with diabetes, obviously, is sugar, which probably a lot of people know. I think one of the challenges a lot of people have is that there's a lot of hidden sugar in our diets that we're not aware of. I'm doing a seminar on April the 14th. So if people haven't got their tickets and they're listening to this and they want more information, they can come, because one of the topics we're speaking about is precisely that issue, where a lot of people, so there's a lot of people that, like we said, try to be healthy, think they're doing the right thing, but then because some of the people involved in the food industry are so good at marketing, so nowadays, because health is popular, what tends to happen is you see a lot of products, they just change the packaging, make it look healthy, but if you look at the actual content, it's got a lot of sugar in it. So there's a lot of things we eat that have a lot of sugar. Our diets, like for full carb, these are rich sort of refined carbohydrates that our body processes to sugar as well. So we also need to, and that's why we were saying that whereas our food is good, we need to be careful about how we eat it and what we eat it with.
How much we eat.
In terms of biscuits, in terms of the other little things that we eat and combine together.
I'll definitely come to that seminar because I like my biscuits. But I just want us, we've got a few minutes left. Let's just focus on the book that you've written, which is Truth About Health Exposure. Exposed, yeah. If you can tell us a bit about that book.
Yeah, so I wrote the book precisely because a lot of the issues we've spoken about here today and what I've seen in practice, and just getting really frustrated with people, especially from my community, that come in and don't engage. I've done a lot of work in like HIV, which there's a lot of stigma around as well, but not just HIV, even in general sort of medicine. And I just felt like I needed to, I had a case that was stringing, and I remember speaking to a pastor and I was doing talks in the community, and he suggested, why don't you write a book, because it will help you to reach out to more people. And I thought, well, that's a good idea. I'll write a book so that I can talk a lot more about some of these health and preventative health issues, which I feel there's not enough in the NHS focus on prevention. Everything is about waiting for people to have a problem, or when people are considered high risk. We need to do more to get in there early. So I wrote the book, and the mindset in writing the book was to give people like a baseline to work from, so to look at things holistically and cover a lot of topical issues, especially issues that I know are relevant to our community, because our community is considered a high-risk community. So that's why I wrote the book, and I covered like the holistic elements of health, your physical, your mental, your social health, and then things like reducing your risk of cancer, religion, culture, and also principles and how you can strategize. And like I said, it is a personal journey, so how you can personalize your own health improvement tactics. So that's kind of the story.
If you can give us just a little brief about religion and culture, or is it tradition and culture? You said
culture and religion.
Culture and religion, because we've had a topic here that we've discussed in the past, whether religion is detrimental to Africa's progress. In context of what we're talking about, what would you say?
don't think I would say it's detrimental, because I think religion is a good thing in some ways. It's good for mental health. I think a lot of people, especially when they're in a different society, like an immigrant population in a society, needs that message of hope, that positivity, that hope you get from going to church, also the fellowship, the social well-being. All those things are positive things for our health, and they're good for health. Even the dancing, one could argue that helps your physical health as well, but it's the messages. I think, the pastors need to be more conscious about the messages they're giving out. I think there's a little bit of fear, or I don't know if it's fear or limited knowledge, that they don't really venture much about health. I think some forward-thinking pastors are now starting to have little health sessions in the church where they're inviting people in to speak. I think there needs to be more engagement with mainstream health bodies, and I think that will help get a better balance with religion. If religion is about improving our lives, then health has to be a part of that. You can't encourage people to improve their life without helping them to improve their health. So I would not say it's a detriment, but I think we can get more out of it to help improve our health as a community.
And in your research to leading up to writing your book, with regards to people that you've spoken to and what you have come to realize, what do you think is the biggest misconception when it comes to health within the African community?
Biggest misconception. I don't know if I would say there is a biggest misconception or a lack of awareness and a lack of care. I think because health is something that until you're affected with a long-term illness or until you've watched someone go through it, you take it for granted. And I think that is the case with our community. We're so busy. People are so busy hustling and working. I was talking to some young entrepreneur chaps, 2 black guys the other day, and they were saying, that when they were in school, they did used to do a lot of stuff, but now they're older, they just haven't got time. And I think for me, it's not a misconception, but I think it's a major challenge. It's like getting people to care more, getting people to not wait until the last minute when it's a bit late to do anything about it. Is getting people to take action and getting people to see past religion. I've seen people, I know someone the other day, his wife was dying of cancer. He wasn't speaking to the children. He didn't want to tell people, even though she was dying, because he was still praying and still believing that, there was going to be a miracle at the last minute. So I think the way we handle health matters in the name of faith, that has to change. So these are the things, like our whole psychic and the way we approach things and awareness, these are the things that I think are the problem. It's not necessarily misconception, because I don't think enough people care enough right now. They wait till it's too late.
But then we're in a world where everything is fast-paced now, and you're saying that people need to be aware of what is out there in terms of what we eat. Back in the day, you have time, you prepare your food, you eat, but now everything has to be on the go. So what would you say to people?
I would say, and I think in the health sector, we need to do a better job of engaging people and meeting people where they are. I think a lot of times we put messages out, and that's another reason I wrote the book, because I feel policies sometimes can be a bit rigid, and I think we put information out. So we tell you, you need to exercise more, you need to do this, but we don't tell you how. We don't tell you how to adapt your lifestyle and things like that. We don't do enough of that. Sometimes we do, but we don't do enough of that. And I think, like you said, I recognize the fact that our lifestyles are fast-paced. We're all trying to, and I think by engaging with health professionals, by engaging, more, then it can, like I said, the podcast, I give a lot of tips about, it's very practical. I try to think of ways that you can, get past that fast lifestyle, and that doesn't have to be a hindrance. Okay, we ran out of time. So finally, how can people get a copy of your book? So the book is available on amazon.co.uk. There are links to the book on my website, www.truthabout.healthexposed.com, where you can also see all the podcasts. And if you like us on Facebook and Twitter, I also put regular updates out there. So fantastic. Thank you for joining us this morning, F.E. Adeniji. Finally got it. Thank you as well, Kiki. Thank you for joining us, and to our listeners and our viewers, thank you for
participating in the show today. We'll do it again, same time, same place next week. Until then, enjoy your weekend. Goodbye.
This program is brought to you by Pay Global.